help break down what this newest phase in the Russian-Ukrainian war could look like is ABC News contributor General Robert Abrams. General Abrams was former commander of U.S. forces in Korea, as well as an advisor to former Secretary of Defense during the last invasion of Ukraine. General Abrams, thank you so much for joining us. According to National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, the Russians are repositioning forces to now try to concentrate their offensive operations in eastern and southern parts of Ukraine. What do you make of that?
Good evening, Lindsay. Well, I think that the National Security Advisor is probably right, but we should be clear that this undertaking by the Russian forces is a huge undertaking. We're talking about moving large numbers of forces that have been in sustained combat operations for over a month. We're going to drag them out of Ukraine, and now they've got to reposition some 700 to 1,000 miles to get into a position where they can support Russian attacks into eastern Ukraine. And not only is there the tyranny of distance, but they've also got to reconstitute several units, which means they've got to basically pull them off to the side, reman them with fresh faces, fresh soldiers from other units. They've got to give them new equipment. They've got to give them some time for training. All of this is going to take time, which will enable Ukraine, I think, to probably bolster their defenses to be able to counter a new offensive in the east.
And the Russians could not take over the entire country as perhaps they initially thought they could. How do you imagine this playing out in the end as far as the land that they might be able to get?
Well, I think that I think we're a little premature to determine what the Russians might be able to get, because I believe that the Ukrainian armed forces, they have certainly proven their mettle in and around Kyiv, in and around Kharkiv, even in the east, where they have really held back a large Russian attack from taking significant gains in the Donbass. And I don't think for a second that the Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian people intend on giving up anything. And I think it'll be a brutal fight continuing on, but unfortunately this will become a battle of attrition. And that is where the difference will be made by how well the Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian people can be supported by NATO, the European Union, and everyone else.
And of course, you just said that you anticipate a brutal fight ahead. You know the region well. Do you think that Russians will face the same type of fierce opposition in the east, which was already a region where there were pro-separatists, but also some of Ukraine's best military assets due to prior hostilities?
Sure. I think, look, for over 30 days, there's been brutal fighting going on. It started on the old contact line, which was the line demarcating between the separatists, so-called separatists, and the Ukrainian armed forces. And that's where the Ukrainians' best large-scale forces are. And it has been brutal fighting already. So the Russians are, even though they'll add additional force structure into their attacks, whether it be from the east, the north, to reinforce from Kharkiv, or from the south, they are in for one very tough battle with some of Ukraine's best. And I would fully expect Ukraine to do everything they can to resupply those units to push Russia back, much like they did in and around Kyiv.
You know, of course, we've heard estimates of months of fighting ahead. In your estimation, how long do you think that this could last?
Well, I think anyone who tries to predict that they can pick an end date looking into a crystal ball is probably, there's too many unknowns and there's too much unpredictability. I think that duration will depend on a couple of factors, and first and foremost will be the will of the Ukrainian armed forces and the will of the Ukrainian people, as well as the support from the EU, NATO, and other like-minded countries. And then secondly, how long can the Russians sustain it? There are plenty of reports of huge problems inside the Russian military, from morale, indiscipline, inability to recover their dead and wounded from the battlefield. So there's multiple factors that will determine how long this conflict will continue.
And of course, I was just asking you to look forward. Now, when you look back in retrospect, General, anything about the strategy or the outcome that we've seen so far that's really surprised you?
Well, I think what has surprised most people who have watched this is we did not expect the Russian military to be so tactically inept. It has been a catastrophe at the tactical level, the operational level, and the strategic level. We can make some mistakes at the strategic and operational level, but no way can that overcome the ineptness and just absolute poor performance at the tactical level. That, I think, was unexpected by many and contributed to Ukraine's success.
General Abrams, we thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thanks, Linsey.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.